Joining us right now is Texas Congressman Louie Gohmert. And Congressman, it is always a pleasure to have you on the program. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. What's your reaction to this poll, Congressman, as we are watching Americans basically vote for how they're feeling about Congress?
Well, it's not a surprise to me because I'm in that category of not being happy with Congress. We've been promising for years that if we were given the chance, we would repeal ObamaCare, and the bill we passed 2 years ago goes a lot further in repealing ObamaCare than this does. One of the victories, though, as you were recounting those, is having Tom Price as Health and Human Services Secretary. He's going to be able to do a great deal as both a doctor and a great legislator, and now a secretary. But as the late Antonin Scalia told me, hey, if you guys in Congress don't have the guts to repeal a bill, don't come running over here to us. And I think in this case, we're running to the executive branch and asking them to do exactly what we complained about Obama doing, and that is getting them to basically repeal a bill. The holdup has been we've given up on trying to get this bill repealed, basically, but we've been demanding at least let's repeal some of the provisions that we know will bring down rates within 2 years. And so I think we're going to get there. But I think in another few weeks, you'll be talking about maybe a month, but you'll be talking about another great victory with regard to taxes. Maria, you and all of you in the panel, you know, the United States has the largest tariff in the industrialized world on goods that we produce. Nobody is crazy enough to have a tariff like we do. It's otherwise known as the corporate tax.
Right.
So the president called me last week, and he is a hoot and a half to talk to over the phone. But we are in 100% agreement. It needs to be 15 if it's not lower, 15%. You will see jobs returning. And all these people that have been saying that, gee, we've evolved into a service economy. Look, if you can't manufacture what you need in a time of war, you won't stay a international power after the next war.
So how do you pay for it? I mean, you know, when you talk about a 15% corporate tax, yes, because you're laughing because you feel like we shouldn't be just having this conversation about revenue neutral. Is that right?
Well, no, I think I agree with Arthur Laffer that we ought to just forget about a score. I think it was Phil Gramm that said, you know, if you ask the Congressional Budget Office how much federal revenue you would bring in with a 200% income tax, they'd say, oh, you'll bring in twice as much as everybody earns. The fact is, when there is a major tax decrease, you have raises in the federal revenue.
Right.
And Laffer said, you just guys need to forget that.
I guess what I'm getting at is I'm getting to the border wall and this conversation about raising revenue somewhere at the border. And, of course, today the news of the day is the Trump administration moving to impose this 20% tariff on lumber from Canada. So connect the dots for us. Is that where you are looking to perhaps raise revenue during the trade part of the economic policy and maybe just forget about a border tax or an import tax or reciprocal tax, whatever you want to call it, in the tax reform package?
I think you've put your finger on the big holdup on a tax bill, and that will be the border adjustment. There's a lot of conflict back and forth. We're all hearing from people back home with mixed messages about the border adjustment tax, so-called. So that's going to be problematic. But the wall is going to get built. I really don't doubt that. And, you know, it's kind of like the Bible says, you ask God for wisdom, you'll get it. It doesn't say when. You know, Mexico's going to pay for the wall. He didn't say exactly when. That's going to happen. But, look, I think one of the reasons...
I like that. Ask God for wisdom. That's very good.
Yeah, but I've been asking since I was 6 years old, and I still don't have it, but I know I will someday.
We're trying to connect the dots here. Dagan,
But, yeah, well, on the border wall, though, I think what you're seeing from the administration is a realization that there is so much flexibility in where some money is spent. I mean, Obama took money from all over the place and found a great deal of flexibility. I think you're going to see that here, and it's going to get built with some money that's already been appropriated and others that will be coming that gives him the flexibility. He could get it over from that account to that one.
There is no flexibility when it comes to the rules governing reconciliation in Congress.
Right.
So any changes made to the tax code, just focusing on corporate tax cuts, they can't add to the deficit beyond a decade. So you're potentially, because you laugh when we ask about how you're going to pay for it, but you're looking at having to sunset tax cuts, and they lose their effectiveness. As John Hilsenrath pointed out at last hour, they lose their effectiveness if a company thinks that tax cut's going away in 10 years.
Yeah, that's right. And we don't need them to go away. We need them there, and we need them there permanently. But CBO couldn't find the rear end with both hands. I mean, these guys have been wrong about a 400% plus or minus margin of error on Obamacare. These guys should not be counted on. And Laffer and I have been talking about for a number of years, we need to start having competitive scoring, and then CBO would not have any role because they are so far out of what actually happens in the real world.
Congressman, just to come back to what Dagan is saying, I mean, the rules are the rules. You have to rely on these projections from the Joint Committee on Taxation. How are you going to get it done?
Well, I think if we look at the realistic numbers historically, it's just tragic. Of course, the thing I would really like to see us do, I've been advocating for years, get rid of CBO and the Joint Tax Commission and use history as the best indicator of where we're going. It's just insane that we have to be locked into these ridiculous rules that don't take into account when you have a major tax decrease, you have a major raise in revenue. And instead, we're trying to explain how we're going to make up for revenue that's actually increased in reality. I think that's absurd. I'm all for putting a provision in there that just suspends that rule so that we can see what the federal revenue actually getting increased.
Congressman, thank you so much. We so appreciate you joining us today. Always a pleasure.